It seems to me that there are people, though, who have escaped the consequence of their actions, and even though they are complete dickheads, and this next person just qualifies for that with a capital D, actually a capital I, a capital C, a capital K, a capital H, a capital E, a capital A, a capital D, exclamation mark, and that is Trevor Mallard, the ex-Speaker of the House. Now, there's a very good interview coming up on Leah's show after mine of the lawyer of a child called Tudor Clee. Most unusual name, Tudor. Mm, I've got an image in my mind, and it's sort of hug tree stuff, but then and homeschool, and I don't know. But the Tudor Clee is actually has filed at the High Court in Wellington an action against the former Speaker of the House and Labour MP Trevor Mallard. She was only 11, in actual fact, when the particular protest happened at Parliament. What's that, 3 years ago now? But the case seeks a declaration that Tudor Clee's rights were breached as a child and seeks damages of $40,000 for three separate breaches. Mallard is being sued for two breaches of the Bill of Rights: the right not to be subject to torture or cruel treatment, and freedom of association. And the third action that he is being arraigned for, if you like, in the civil court is a civil wrong. It's a tort, which is what a civil wrong is, claiming malfeasance in public office. Boy, and can I just say, it's a tort that's sat on in our common law for so long. I'm stunned that it doesn't apply on a relatively regular basis to any number of elected officials and bureaucrats in this country, but it hasn't been. Anyhow, where a public officer intentionally abuses their power, causing harm to another person. And the lawyer says that this is an unusual claim to file. It sure is, but covers the intentional use of what he described as military torture techniques when Mallard set up loudspeakers to prevent protesters resting and sleeping. Anyhow, I haven't quite worked out if Tudor Clee, no, Tudor Clee is the lawyer, sorry, not the child, but he is being interviewed by Leah after 1 o'clock. You probably want to listen to that, and he'll give the whole background to it. Now, on its face, this is a laughable and, frankly, stupid legal action, in the sense that it is utilising, if you like, existing pieces of law and stretching them to, well, probably a breaking point in the case of the last one, to make a point. But the point is still well made, despite the fact that inevitably, I have to say, these court actions will fail. And you heard it from me first. They're obviously going to fail. There isn't a case law that suggests that it can be stretched that far. But at least it does bring back into, I would suggest to you, the public gaze, the actions of those during the COVID hysteria in this country, who have not been able to escape and slope off, stage left or stage right, in many cases with honours, or in Trevor Mallard's case with a plum job of being the ambassador, the New Zealand ambassador or High Commissioner. It's ambassador, isn't it? It's High Commissioners to Commonwealth countries. Ambassador to Ireland, where he has been richly rewarded and given, if you like, a sort of, golden retirement gift from the New Zealand taxpayer. And Trevor Mallard and his actions during that time were, as the courts would later find out when they were discussing Winston Peters being trespassed from the High Court, it was the High Court, in actual fact, declared Trevor Mallard's actions of the time, and this was in connection with Winston Peters, not to do with the protesters necessarily on the lawn, when Mallard decided to go full authoritarian, totalitarian despot, when he trespassed Winston Peters from the Parliament lawns. And the High Court had declared in that particular case that Mallard was unreasonable. These are not my quotes, these are the court's quotes. Unreasonable, irrational, and unjustified in his decision to trespass New Zealand First Winston Peters. All right. Now, we now know, as a result of this last and latter actions by the lawyer for the child, and various pieces of official information, and I guess discovery will come out of this as well. So an elaborate process at which you find out what the other part have been trying to hide for so long. That's the judicial, or that's the sort of court mechanism to try and uncover the truth. Good luck. Most people go and incinerate and burn their papers if they're incriminatory, but in this case it'll be a lot harder because they're official documents. But anyhow, so this particular action is going to happen, and it's going to raise again that a lot of people have escaped justice. And so I needed to get that off my chest, because in a funny sort of way, Caleb Clarke, who did a really stupid thing, and he did, but harmed no one. I mean, the consequences are he could have, but he didn't, except himself and his reputation. I guess his family have suffered from all that as well. And yet I look at Trevor Mallard sitting in his rather palatial residence with all the accoutrements of office in Dublin, and essentially being rewarded for, well, you could have extended that High Court description of all of his actions during that period. It is unreasonable, irrational, and unjustified. More will come out, I'm sure, as this particular court action ends up in the High Court from the lawyer of the 11-year-old child. I have little doubt it will fail, but I'm just talking from a legal point of view. But it will expose again those who have escaped. And I'm thinking now there's a list of them. There's Grant Robertson, the Minister of Finance, escaped the consequences of his disastrous financial and economic policy and has been rewarded with a $650,000 a year job at Otago University, despite his only qualification for that position having a Bachelor of Arts, and not a particularly good one, from that institution. I think of Sir Ashley Bloomfield, again, a whole series of decisions that were incredibly disruptive of our society and condemnatory and discriminatory of large groups within it. And I think of those people that he has managed to upset, but been rewarded with a knighthood. And again, I think of, we can think of everybody from Jacinda Ardern and her book, and we'll talk a little bit more later, to a whole series of people who have sloped away from all of that particular issue and not being held accountable for any of the mistakes, irrational, unjustified as they might have been. And then on the other hand, you have Caleb Clarke, So I'm just saying, good on the lawyer for the child, Shooter Clee. He will be on Leah's program, I think, after 1 o'clock today. You'll probably want to listen to that. But it just, the double nature of justice in this country, and its unfairness and inequity, and the inability to hold those in power to honest and true account when they stuff up. And yet, for the rest of us, when we stuff up, we tend to get the book thrown at us, don't we? Those are my thoughts this morning. What are yours?